Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Listen and Learn. And today's session is about reflecting on International Women's Day. So today you've got myself MCing. So I'm Catherine Billing and I'm Chief Officer of Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service, EDI lead for the NSCC, and also very proud director of Women in the Fire Service. Before I introduce the colleagues that are joining me on the call today, just for information, the Listen and Learn sessions are very much about lived experience. So if by any chance today there is something that that you relate to or triggers you, then please, we won't mind at all if you just pop yourself away and kind of get yourself a cup of tea. But please check in with somebody if indeed you are impacted by any of the conversations today, and take care of yourself. Also today, we are looking to reflect back on International Women's Day. Why didn't we have this on International Women's Day? Because we were all out celebrating and having a great time on International Women's Day. I always do say it's a bit like Christmas. So a week on, and the theme was all about inspiring inclusion for 2024. So today's session is indeed about role models and allyship. And last week, in some of the sessions I delivered, I raised really how important not only kind of leadership, but for me, two of the key parts about inspiring inclusion are the strength of role models and absolutely the strength of allyships. And today, we have with us joining the session two inspirational and incredible allies and role models. We've got Alex Johnson. I'll allow her to introduce herself in a moment, and Ashley Tugby as well. So if I can, Alex and Ash, over to yourselves just for a quick intro about who you are, if people don't already know you. Alex first, thank you.
Thanks, Kath. Morning, everybody. So I'm Alex Johnson. I joined Derbyshire Fire Service back in 1992 as a firefighter. Spent 24 and a half years there, moved up to area manager, and then moved up to South Yorkshire as assistant chief, and then quite by accident ended up as the chief, and I retired as chief nearly 2 years ago now. But also I've been involved in Women in the Fire Service UK since it started back in, I think it was 96, 97. So I've been involved in WFS UK almost all my career. Start as was a local rep, then a regional rep, then I got co-opted onto the board, and I was director. I'm now director patron, which is what they do to old people when they retire, they become patrons. So really, I suppose supporting women and getting women to be the best they can be is something that's been close to my heart for a long time. And if it wasn't for the other women that have supported me, I undoubtedly wouldn't have got to where I did. So that's me. Thank you very much, Kath.
Thank you. Ashley.
Thanks, Kath. Ashley Tugby, Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service. I'm Station Commander, Operational EDI Officer. I joined the service in 2000. I did actually do 15 years as an on-call firefighter, joined the whole time in 2006. I've always been extremely passionate about inclusion. I was really pleased to get the opportunity to have a 2-year secondment. I'm into my second year into this role, so that all the work I was doing in my spare time I can now do and enjoy making that positive change in my full-time post. So yeah, I really see the importance of allyship, and I try and champion it wherever I can. I think as an organisation we've got some really good stuff going on. He for She, if anyone's heard of that before, and we're also rolling out a lot of courses around challenging misogyny. I've made some really good friends, and I recognise a lot of the names in the room today, so it's lovely to see you all. And a lot of those connections were made at the event I attended for the Women's Fire Service Network Development Weekend, which is an amazing event. So thank you.
Thank you very much, both. So today's session is going to be a little bit of a different session. So we're going to be it's almost like a discussion. So going to have a number of questions, and please kind of, if you've got any questions and you'd like to come in, absolutely put your hand up, but equally, if you would rather just pop some questions in the chat bar as well. So please make it as interactive as you would like to. But the first question, just to kick us off, is around what does it mean to be to yourselves to be a role model or indeed an ally? So I suppose we're kind of going to explore, you know, what is it? What does it actually involve? You know, do you have to be kind of, you know, as an ally or role model? Is there stuff you have to physically do? Do you have to do loads of stuff? Do you not have to do very much? You know, what is it that you see that being a role model or an ally is? So I'll go Alex and then Ash, and then we'll switch it in a minute. So Alex.
Ooh, shake it up a bit. So what is it to be a role model? I think one thing it isn't, you don't have to be a chief or a senior person to be a role model. To me, being a role model is about supporting women and men. I mean, you know, it's not exclusive. I don't not role model for men. And I think it's just about, I suppose, letting women see that, you know, something's achievable. If you've been there, done it, you can help them see that it's a possibility. Help to motivate women to look and think, you know, perhaps I could go for that next rank, or not necessarily, it's not about rank always, but, you know, just that they can be the best they can be. And when you say about what does it involve, it's really weird to put a finger on it. I think being a role model is about being accessible to people, being, you know, sort of open to just keeping an eye on people and looking out for people, and sort of giving them opportunities, you know, letting them see their own potential, I think. And I mean, I'm sure there must be a guidebook on it somewhere, but I think it's just about being, recognizing that you've got to be sort of not in the public eye, but, you know, people have got to be able to see you. You know, we always say, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think, you know, using that influence to get women to be the best they can be. And then I know Ash will probably answer more about the ally, but that importance, that support that ally gives you is just so powerful. You know, when a bloke that stands by your side and shouts up for you, it really is a powerful thing to do. So I'll stop there.
No, thank you. I think a lot about being a role model, and I can remember some, you know, and I always say this to people, is you, each and every one of you on this call now, you probably don't realize it, but you are going to be someone's role model. You like I said, you're probably not even aware of it, and you're probably sat there going, me? But I can pretty much guarantee you, might not be in the workplace, but somewhere in your life, you will either will have been or are somebody's role model. And I think the great thing about the fire service is we are very, very different people. So I think what's great is kind of just being yourself sometimes is actually enough. You know, kind of just living your life, loving your life, and being the best that you can be is actually inspiring. You know, sometimes say enough. I mean, that's a great place to be. But like I said, if you don't take anything away from the session, I'm going to take a lot, by the way. But I would say, you know, you are someone's role model, and just keep being the best version of you that you can be. Ash, do you want to give us a little bit of an overview around allyship and what you think kind of that means? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kath. I think for me, it's we use the expression, you set the standard, you walk past. So for me, it's about kind of being that check and balance for the standards of behaviour we expect, the way we include others and invite others in as well, because that's something I feel very passionate about. I want to make sure that everybody, I think like Alex said, but, you know, that we make everybody feel valued and that they can be their authentic self at work. I think I've seen too many people have to change to fit into the watch culture. And really, the watch culture should be so inviting that anybody can join and be themselves, as long as that obviously fits within the core code of ethics. And allyship really for me as well is about, so I tend to think, well, so people ask me, what's my motivation to be an ally? And firstly, I need to let you know that I do overshare. So just to put you on the radar there. But so having dyslexia myself and ADHD, I did find it a bit tricky fitting into the station environment, because I wasn't your typical, I don't know, I'm going to say typical because that might be unfair, but, you know, I like shopping, I like theatre, but, you know, I don't know, just I don't really like sports so much. and luckily you can only see my top half, because otherwise you'd know that I don't like sports too much, because I've got a little bit of Christmas still sitting on my waist. But I think at any point in time, I think if we can create an environment that, you know what, we can embrace people's differences, and that whether it be gender or the differences in thought or whatever it be, that we can just allow people to kind of be themselves and feel valued and feel supported. And for me as well, it's definitely not about speaking on behalf of female staff, but it's empowering people to have that voice. And I think definitely, you know, that can be as small as you're sitting around the mess table, for example, or in your team at work, and there may be a comment which is inappropriate towards a female member of staff. Now, we're not speaking on behalf of those individuals. However, I must admit myself, my neurodiversity, you know, in years gone by where there's been some stigma around neurodiversity and there was comments made, I'd have loved it if someone on that kind of within that team said, actually, hold on a minute, that's not right, or that's not appropriate, just to give me a break from really defending myself. That is what true allyship is for me. To be that voice, that support, because sometimes it can be a very lonely place. You can sit in those environments and you may have 6 people talking at you, telling you whatever it is about neurodiversity, whatever it's about being a female in the fire service, you know, comments around, oh, they only got that job because they're a female. I absolutely detest comments like that. I feel that females have to work so much harder, and I just think that's so wrong, because, you know, it's just why is that? How is that even fair? And that's where, as an ally, we can jump in and show that support and give that kind of almost, I don't know, I think when you're standing with someone by your side, it makes it a lot easier to deal with situations like that. And also, I do find that once you get that reputation for someone that challenges these inappropriate behaviours, we tend to see less of them, which is a positive in my eyes. You know, so we need to make sure we have as many allies as possible, because we can't be everywhere at once. So we get to the point where everybody is treated fairly and with respect. And I think as a male being an ally for females in the fire service, I've had inappropriate comments aimed at me as well, questioning my motivation, which really does upset me, because my intention is really only because of my own personal history and about embracing people's differences and making everyone feel valued. But I think as a heterosexual male, I think it's unfair that people assume there's another motivation, because perhaps the males have tarnished that role in the past. I think it's unfair to assume that everybody's got those same intentions. But luckily, people that know me know my intentions, know my history, and know I'm a big advocate of females in the fire service.
No, thank you. And that's crazy, isn't it, to think, you know, and I suppose that's something I think I know that I've learned is, you know, we are probably as women sat there going, you know, I'm really grateful for kind of men that support us. And you're absolutely right. It's not about speaking for us. It's about amplifying the voice of others. And you're absolutely right. But I think what's absolutely crazy is we don't appreciate sometimes the stigma that probably you know, has gone, and hopefully it is reducing, you know, for men and others that kind of that amplify our voices and our allies. Deb, can I bring you in, please? Lovely to welcome you in today.
Hi, Deb from Oxfordshire Fire. Yeah, just thought I'd start the ball rolling with those that are not chairing the meeting. So, yeah, absolutely agree with everything that's been said previously. For me as well, there's an additional part, whether it be role model or ally, is about that challenge. And Ashley, you talked about challenging those conversations, but especially as a role model, if you are willing to put yourself out there and challenge comments, actions, behaviours, what that then does is it empowers others to feel that they can as well, and it's all about allowing everybody to be able to feel comfortable to challenge something that's either said or done. So I think challenge is as important as being visible and behaving or modelling behaviours.
No, absolutely. I think what we know that we've got in our organisations is some absolutely great people, you know, that that genuinely put their lives on the line, you know, in emergency situations, and do really great things. And I think, Deb, you're right, you know, kind of if we can tip the balance, you know, kind of in our daytime activity for people to be, because it is quite courageous, isn't it? To speak up and to challenge. But if we can tip the balance so that people are more comfortable to be courageous in their kind of normal workplace activity, then I think we certainly could move to kind of making our workplace much more inclusive. But thank you. Ash, did you want to come back in? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that was a really good point, and thanks for sharing, Debbie, on that. I think for me as well, I don't think we can underestimate the strength it takes to be one of those people that speak up. So I just applaud anyone in the room that does that, because it's not an easy thing to always do, but it means so much to the individuals that you're speaking up for. So I just really wanted to raise that point.
No, thank you. I've got a question in the panel, in the chat bar as well. Are there any negatives to being a role model or an ally? Alex, you smiled there first. I'm going to come to you.
I suppose, sometimes being a role model, people see it, you can be seen as, sort of that, look at me, aren't I wonderful? Or people may feel that that's why you're doing it. And that can sometimes cause challenges between women, because it's like, oh, it's her again, and it's the Alex Johnson show, or the whoever it is. So I think there are challenges, and I think that probably stops women because they don't want to be seen as that, anything different.
Yeah.
The negative, it's like there can't be a negative to being a role model, but there are challenges associated with it where, sometimes the negative to me sometimes is when I try and encourage women that don't want to, be involved with, women's networks and things like that. I get frustrated because it's like, I just want you to be part of an amazing group and see the potential and see all the role models, because there's definitely more than me. Like you said, everybody in this room is a role model. So it can be frustrating at times because sometimes you're pushing against an open door, and sometimes people have barricaded the door because they just want to be fit in, as Ash said, be on a watch or in a department and just be accepted by everybody else. So it can be challenging at times, and sometimes it's like, oh, Alex will come and talk, and you think there's loads more positive role models out there that I just want to see step up and start being more visible role models. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest challenge I find would be a positive role model.
Yeah, there's some incredible voices out there, aren't there, and some incredible experiences, and as many of those as we can hear the better. So Ash, before I come to you, I'm going to bring in Kerry, the Chief of Norfolk. Mom, good morning. Good morning, welcome.
Morning, everyone. Lovely to see you too. Really interesting question in the chat about are there any negatives around being a role model? And I'm not sure I can answer the question, but one of the things that on a personal level that can be quite challenging is it's sometimes easier when you're in a position like mine to advocate on behalf of other people when you see things that are not right, or you can see behaviours that need challenging. But then sometimes when you find yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable, or sometimes with elected members a comment might be made that's more personal to you, it can be harder to advocate for yourself, and then you're sometimes in that conflict situation of not looking like you've continued that integrity of what you challenge and don't challenge. So on a personal level, I find it much easier to advocate and to provide allyship to others than sometimes to be in that space myself. So just thought I'd share that perspective.
No, thank you very much indeed, and lovely to see you. Thank you. Ash, negatives to being an ally. I know you touched on a few, but anything you wanted to reiterate?
I think that was a really good point raised there. And I think sometimes we talk about self-care and it's ourselves that we think about last, isn't it? But yet we put so much time and effort in to make sure that everyone else feels included and valued and doesn't have to put up with behaviour that's unacceptable. So I think just that's been a really nice reminder to me that actually we need to take that time to think of ourselves as well. And that's another point. I think I know we're talking about challenges, but another point of being an ally is we've got so many other amazing people, lots of them within this meeting, that we can reach out to. And I know I've done that before, that check and balance, that conversation, you know, because I've had rather challenging experiences when trying to support staff, and it's really good to be able to talk through. I think regarding challenges as a role model, I think sometimes you can, I don't know, people, I don't know, when you're in a meeting or something, they kind of, I don't know, they kind of almost label you as some kind of fun sponge, because what they deem as banter and I don't deem as banter, and what we don't deem as acceptable, when you're challenging that, they think you're some kind of fun sponge, and you could then actually become on the receiving end of those unwanted behaviours. Whereas before, in my early career, I would kind of accept those. Now I very much do speak out in the right way to make sure that these things don't happen. I think also there can be challenges as a male ally for females in the fire service, because people worry what your intention is, and that, as I said previously, I find really disturbing. Also, I think previously we've had, so for example, when we've set up network groups, we've had people join the network group because they want to be able to reference something for a promotion interview, and then as soon as they've got the job, they're not in that group anymore. So people then may question why you are an ally. It's a tick in the box, so you've got something to talk about for the next promotion. So there's that element as well. I think people tend to look at, well, what is your motivation for being an ally? What are you going to get out of it? And that's something I'd really like to change. Do you know what? The only thing we want to get out of this is exactly as Alex said at the start, that we can empower and perhaps role model to encourage others. What we don't speak about, particularly men, we're so much better at it, females are so much better at it, is that imposter syndrome, that lack of self-belief, those limiting beliefs that we have. And it's really nice when you hear people of higher rank even speaking about, you know what, those feelings are quite normal. We all get them, because it normalizes your own feelings. And if we can do that to others and normalize those feelings, and you know, it's okay to have those feelings, but just don't let them limit your progression, then that's really, really important.
No, that's fair. And that picks up really on a point that John made in the chat bar around, they like the term around real model, because none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, personal vulnerabilities, etc. And it shifts that connotation away from a perfect role model, which brings its own challenges. So somebody has identified me as a role model a few years ago and bits, and believe me, I'm definitely not perfect. So I think that probably broke the mold, you know, of like, you know, role models are perfect, because if I can be one, seriously. And I think, but arguably, I think that's what it's about, isn't it? Is actually, in this day of social media where everything seems to be perfect, you know what, actually what we aspire to be is and goodness me, if you don't make your mistakes, you're not going to learn, and you know, you're not going to kind of develop. So I really like that bit about the real model. And there's another point as well about encouraging young men not to tolerate negative behaviour towards women. And goodness me, in the last probably few months, I've had my absolute eyes opened wide to the types of stuff that young men, you know, when they try to, you know, when they look online and think, what does masculinity mean? You know, what does, you know, kind of what does being a man mean? And the types of things that they are now subjected to and impacted by, because, you know, some of the things that young people now are visibly seeing, especially online, are certainly not that we would probably all consider to be, you know, what about what being a good man is about. So you're absolutely right, you know, and I know there's some great work being done. I think it's Devon and Somerset, there's somebody down there doing some work around what it means to be, you know, a male role model, and what it means to be, you know, a good kind of young person, kind of a good young man, and behaving well towards, you know, towards women. I've got, I think, Sam and then Debbie. Sam, good morning.
Good morning. Lovely to see you all, and just really love listening to this conversation and just kind of understanding and yeah, just reflecting back on some of my own experiences. And I think the bit that Ash just mentioned there around don't underestimate, and it was mentioned earlier, don't underestimate the power of your day-to-day actions, however small they are, whether it's saying hello to somebody who you don't know, or it's just challenging those statements is so powerful, and we just don't probably even realise that we're doing it. And I think that is absolutely important, and I think that's what I've been reflecting on. There's two parts to mine, and it's one about the resilience. So when you challenge, you know, it takes a toll on yourself, and building that resilience is so important, because you can become, and I know I've experienced where I'm not gonna, why is it always me? Why do I actually, this is really draining. It takes my energy, but it's so important. And when we're confronted with situations, we still stand up and we still do the right thing. And I think it's just thinking about your own personal resilience and the people you reach out to is so critical. I think the one thing I just want to reflect on and maybe pass back to the panel is, I hear people say, thank you for standing up, thank you for being brave, thank you for raising that with me. It's so important that you do this. And then I'm thinking, but you've seen this as well. Other people have seen this. Why are you thanking me? How do we get those people that thank people for being brave be the ones that stand up for some things? So I think that's the thing that I've noticed, kind of the most recent thing is people saying thank you for being brave. Actually, we should empower people to recognise and say the same things we're saying. It shouldn't always be the same people. So just quite a few things there. Sorry, scattered in. Thank you.
No, thank you. I suppose, yeah, it's when does that bravery become normality, I suppose, or the new norm? Alex, would you like to pick up on some of those points? Thank you, Sam.
I was just thinking about, I think one of the problems when, and you're right, you know, it's like, oh, Alex will challenge that, Alex will pull them up every time. It's the same people over and over again. And how do we get people to feel that they can do it? And I think I'm probably not going to give an answer. I think what the problem is what happens in the fire service and probably everywhere else is somebody says something and you go, that's out of order, that's offensive. And we end up, after a short conversation, almost apologising for pulling them up. And I think, you know, I'm probably old enough and ugly enough now that I've got past that. And we need to give people that almost, it's about challenging conversations, isn't it? And instead of justifying it, you know, if something's wrong, it's wrong. And you say to them, you know, what you just said is offensive and it goes against our core values, policies, procedures, whatever. And then you'll get back, yeah, but I didn't mean it. You're just being oversensitive, just a bit of banter. And then we go, yeah, but, you know, it really upset me. And instead of going down that, we should just say, what you just said is bang out of order. It goes against our core values, our policies, procedures. Don't say it again. And then they come back again and you just go, it goes against, I find it offensive, don't say it again. And that broken record of, you know, and I think some people need that empowering to be able to do that, because what we do, and particularly as women, we end up apologising for complaining in the first place. So I think it's how we empower people to challenge. And it sounds, you know, it shouldn't be difficult. Like I've said, you know, if one of our kids came home and said the boys keep using the toilets at school, you know, every parent would be banging on the door going, how dare you, this is wrong. And yet we don't challenge inappropriate behaviours on a fire station or, you know, in the workplace. So I think it's about some simple techniques to help others to challenge, so that they don't then feel they've got to defend it. And it's like, well, I don't know enough about equality to, you know, to be able to defend that statement. It's not about equality, it's about being a decent human being. So I think there's something that we should be able to do with people, you know, rather than just learning and having the scars from challenging over and over again. You know, I think there's work to be done that would make it easier for people. And I'm sorry, Kath, I think I went off on a tangent then. Was there something else you wanted me to answer? You know what I'm like?
No, absolutely. Ash, anything from your perspective?
No, I just wanted to say I'm really enjoying this chat. It's brilliant, and not on a tangent at all, Alex, because it really provokes further thought and discussion. I think Sam makes a really good point, and what I would say is, and something I'm really mindful of, is that that emotional intelligence, understanding that people may have triggers. So if we don't acknowledge someone as they walk into a room, or we don't say good morning or make them feel valued, that could be a trigger from how they were treated as a young person. It could be a trigger from how they felt when they initially joined the fire service. You know, there's so many things we need to take into account there. So I think how we behave and how we can make others feel, we can't underestimate the power of that.
No, definitely. And it's really interesting because I challenged something only this week actually, and it was interesting because I had a meeting about it, and as I was going through, you know, and I think the key thing is I'm not saying even in the role that I'm in, but somebody said, oh, tell me about it, and as I started to pick through it, you know, whilst I knew genuinely it was the right thing to do and I absolutely should have done it, I'm sat there going, imposter syndrome came in. Well, who are you to challenge? Oh, maybe you were being sensitive. Oh, maybe you made a big deal of this. And literally, you can almost feel yourself shrinking down. And it was only the fact that I had discussed it with my, you know, with members of my team, that I could hear their voices going, no, it was wrong. You know, goodness, and it just, you know, lifted me up enough to kind of almost get through it. And I think it's that, you know, that hopefully, well, not hopefully at all, but it is difficult to challenge, and that's why it's so important that we have not people there to defend, but we begin to shift that change of, you know, when you walk out from, you know, maybe the mess room or the watch room or wherever you are in your office, that somebody says to you, actually says, I'm sorry because I should have challenged that. You know, rather than a bit like you said, Sam, rather than saying, oh, thank you, you know, it's that actually what we should be doing is apologizing for not, you know, almost like not being the first person to have raised it. But thank you. Debs, you've been waiting patiently there. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning from a wet and windy Cornwall. So yeah, just a few thoughts based on the conversation that has been taking place. So what the first one is that I have a 24 and a 19-year-old daughter, and certainly my 19-year-old daughter, I'm astounded sometimes at what she tells me about how some of her friends are treated by their boyfriends and partners, and there is quite a, in some areas and within some people, for whatever reason, a real imbalance of how males perceive females and how they treat them. And some of what I see is countermount abuse, but they don't think it is. And it's coming back to what you were saying, Kath, about, you know, that thought process is, I think you said Devon and Somerset, you know, what is it to be a good human and a good male, and how should we treat one another? Because I am absolutely astounded by what I hear that some 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old lads are doing and the way they're treating females. It is shocking. That was the first point that came to mind. The second was around conversations around the table. I've been speaking with quite a few colleagues in service now where they're talking about the fact that they're having conversations around the mess table, sort of saying, can we say that? Is that the appropriate thing to say? And they're starting to question themselves. And firstly, I think if you're questioning yourself, then you're probably not saying the right thing. And secondly, it's great to see that they're starting to have those conversations without it being because, you know, our chief Kath has arrived or I've had a conversation with them. They're genuinely now having those conversations, and we're starting to see a little bit of that peer challenge and that peer review and understanding what is appropriate in the workplace. But the world does move on, and I've found myself a few times in the past sort of saying things thinking it was the appropriate thing to say and the right language to use, and being sort of pulled up by my daughter saying, you can't say that anymore, that's not what you say now. And I'm like, oh, is it not? What do you say? And the world's constantly evolving, so it is a learning piece. We're all on a journey of learning. I think we have to recognize that and not be in a place where if we do challenge people that they feel like they're going to be disciplined and so on, unless it requires it, that actually it's a healthy conversation, it's a healthy challenge to help everyone understand how they should behave. And I think the final point somebody dropped in the chat bar about, you know, when you're sharing these things and saying these things, think about it as if it were your mother, your daughter, your wife. And we used to do that. I used to work in financial services, and we always used to say the grandmother test. If you're selling a product, would you sell it to your grandmother and be comfortable that you're selling that product to them? And if not, then you shouldn't be doing it. And similarly, would you say those things or be comfortable if those things were said to a family member of yours? And if not, then that tells you that's not the right thing to be doing. So I think a lot of it is about people's personal moral compass, and I think there's great moral awareness. It's just at what stage people are on that journey really at the moment. So there were just some thoughts that were provoked through the chat and the conversation, Kath.
No, thank you very much. And yeah, it's John that brought up, and often they say when they're out doing their visits, how would you feel if your wife, your mum, your daughter came home and said, shared these types of experiences of banter, and it often provokes a response and some personal reflection. But no, absolutely. So let's kind of move on there a little bit.
Kath,
we've talked. Yes, apologies.
Sorry,
yes?
it's Ashley. Sorry to interrupt, but I just must. This is something I'm going to take away today. I've just seen this from Sophie in the chat, and it says we need to move from being bystander to ally. What an amazing thing to say! Absolutely couldn't agree more.
No, thank you. And do you want to pick up a bit on that difference between the bystander, because gosh, there used to be a big thing, wasn't there, back kind of be a bystander, or kind of or don't be a bystander, but that move really from kind of being the bystander into the ally. Do you want to touch on that, Ash? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, thank you. I think we said this at the start, a lot of us are kind of doing this allyship already, and we're perhaps not even aware we are that voice that speaks, that we are that ally. I think I definitely can reflect in the past where I have walked past a situation and not challenged early in my early career, and that was normally because the person I was going to have to challenge was a rank or two above myself. And I think that was one of the questions we've been asking: how do people feel about challenging people that are perhaps a higher rank or role than the current position you're in? Because that can be difficult, and we've had staff say yes, it would be difficult, because of course we could see them on a interview board, or they could then obviously treat us differently for standing up. But I think no matter what rank or role, we should challenge, and I know that's happened quite recently within our service. Quite high up, we've had to challenge. So and that's what we advocate really. And I think that around the mess table as well, we've got something at the moment called Flag It. And now that starts those conversations. If someone starts saying something inappropriate, pretty much everyone else around the table points the finger at them and then says, flag it. Now, if that's actually having a positive effect, which it is, then we're happy. So I think from bystander to ally, I think the more you become that ally, the more you become that voice, the more you empower others and support their voice. It just seems to be a position you sit in then, and sit in quite comfortably.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Gary raises a good point around sometimes a lot of what we talk about is about language, isn't it? And maybe it's the concept, they say, maybe it's the concept of challenge and conflict that prevents people from raising the issues. Maybe we should think of it as an opportunity to actively raise awareness, and not that we're creating conflict. And I think you're absolutely right, and I think goodness me, if I think back to some of the things during just over 25 years ago, some of the things that I would have said and done, over time, what I used to do and say is very different to kind of what I say now. And even some jokes and bits and pieces that I used to find funny, if I hear them, I just don't find them funny. And that's not because I've Ash has kind of come along and been the fun police and taken my fun away. Absolutely not. It's because you evolve, don't you? You learn, you grow, you develop, your perception of things change as you evolve. But those evolutions have happened because of awareness raising. And Gary, I think you raise a good point, is should we, because we do talk about oh, you need to challenge, actually, you're right, is it challenge, is it just about actually learning together? Is that the more appropriate way of looking at things? Ash?
Just on the point Guy made, and it's a really good point, Kath, is really the fact that sometimes it is about educating, isn't it, and raising awareness. Because if I could just give you an example I experienced a few years ago, there was a member of staff, a watch commander, that was really trying to be that positive person, and we was conducting job-related tests, and we had 10 people lined up just about to run out the hose as part of the hose running part of the test, and there was a female applicant, and the watch commander said to the person next to the female, swap the hose with that female there or young lady there, because your length of hose is slightly smaller, so let's be a gentleman. Well, what you've basically done there is completely undermine that female. So now if that female then passes the test, it's because she was given a shorter length of hose. So when I spoke to that watch commander, he was completely unaware. He thought he was doing the right thing. So sometimes it absolutely is about educating.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think a lot of a lot of interactions we have with often our kind of elected members, and you sit there and you think, as uncomfortable sometimes as that some of the things they sometimes phrase things, they're coming from a point of genuinely good intent and kindness. It's just the fact, you just need to say, well, actually that wasn't probably as appropriate or as kind as you may have thought it was. And you're right, it's about it's sometimes about the not the challenge but the education and the learning, notwithstanding that sometimes the challenge is appropriate and absolutely kind of required. And I think we probably all need to get a bit more confident with doing that for sure. Excellent. So let's have a look. How can others get involved? What would you say are the steps to kind of allyship, steps to role modelship, real modelship? Alex?
I'm going to be a real model from now on. That's it. Real model, not a role model. I think getting involved is just about having that confidence that you have something to offer somebody else, and it may be the smallest thing. It may be a kind word, just sort of approaching people. You don't have to do much. It's not like you have to go on a course to be an ally or a role model. It's about being available to people, sort of starting those conversations with people that perhaps might feel a bit nervous to speak to you, or anything like that. So I think it's about being available, attending events where you might meet women that perhaps haven't had much contact with other women, sharing your experiences, because I'm sure a lot of women looked at me and thought, well, I could never be a chief because I've not done X, Y and Z. And when you say to them, well, I left school with 4 O levels, I'm no brain surgeon. So sort of creating that understanding with people that I'm no more special than anybody else, and that they've got probably greater skills than I have. So creating a relationship with people so that you can empower them and support them. So I think it's quite a simple thing, and a lot of it in the fire service, and I go back to the fire service because that's what we are in, you are in, I'll always be in the fire service, but it's about recognising that we still have a culture where women tend to fit in, and reaching out to them and getting them to step outside that sort of cultural effect, that phenomena that it changes people when they join the fire service after 3 months, and they behave just how they want to be accepted. So I think it's about helping create that environment where women and men can come, start in the fire service and carry on being the people that we employed, rather than the people that they think they need to behave like. So I think that role model is about reaching out and saying, be yourself, be you, because that's really good enough, because that's why we employed you. So I think it's about being visible and encouraging people to be who we want them to be, not who they think they should be.
No, that's absolutely fair. Kerry, would you like to come in again?
Yeah, just a perspective of how people can get involved. A colleague of mine who's actually a director in the museum service had a really nice phrase for what he wanted museums and art galleries to be, which was a safe space for difficult conversations. And I really liked the concept of that, that sometimes, you know, art can provoke a conversation that people wouldn't have otherwise around, you know, history or historical norms and behaviours. And I think in terms of other people getting involved, it's like, how can you be the conduit for a difficult conversation in a safe space? And I know Debs from Cornwall talked about, you know, her daughter will kind of pick up on things. I've got 2 teenage daughters, and they're my safe space to have a difficult conversation about how language has moved on, or how I might, you know, something that might have been appropriate 10, 20 years ago isn't an appropriate way to describe things now. So I think by providing that safe space for other people to learn and develop and kind of move their perceptions on, or move their behaviour on, can be as important as the challenge aspect, because it is about making sure people aren't defensive, making sure that people are in a space where they genuinely want to move to a different place. And as Kath said, you know, not find the joke funny anymore because actually their mindset has shifted. Thanks.
No, thank you. Somebody's also said in the chat as well about being a white ribbon champion and ambassador, and then they said, which I think is actually probably the most important part, and being proud of it. You know, to really kind of, it's a bit like you said earlier on, you know, what's the motivation for people to do things? And I think if your motivation is something that's kind of inside of you and absolutely hits your values, then absolutely be proud of it. Own being an ally, own being a role model. Ash, was there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you. I think just a comment there that's come up in the chat as well is very timely, is the fact that, you know, we have all heard of perhaps people within our organisations that, you know, things have remained unchallenged, or we'll hear the expression, well, it's just them, you know what they're like, they're going to be retiring soon. How is that even acceptable to be thinking like that? Anyway, so regarding becoming an ally, I think really having, for me personally, having like-minded people, like people within this group surrounding me, I find really empowers me to be that person, to speak up. And I think really a good friend of mine said, surround yourself with radiators, not drains. And that can be a really good piece of advice. In the workplace, it depends really, doesn't it? We don't always get to choose who we surround ourselves with. And I remember visiting one station, and I was talking to the watch there for about 2 hours. And I came away physically and mentally drained from the negativity. And as an ally, I just immediately then got on the phone to a trusted friend, colleague, a like-minded person, and had that conversation. It just kind of lifted me back up. And I'll say now, even within this meeting, I'm going to go away from this meeting feel more empowered and lifted just from it. And hopefully it'll inspire other people to become an ally, because I don't think we can underestimate the power of allyship. And we look at the national campaign of He for She, you know, that is again about males supporting females. And again, I can't emphasize enough, this isn't about, because that'd be completely detrimental and have a negative effect. This isn't speaking on behalf of or for, this is empowering. And that's the big key here.
No, thank you. Anya, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to make a comment on what was discussed about becoming an ally. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't have to be a pledge or you know, wearing a badge. It can happen organically. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities to move on from being bystander to an ally. And I had an example from early days of my career where inappropriate comment was made by a senior member of staff, and none of my crew or my JO challenged it. However, when we get back to the station, they all commented on it and it how inappropriate it was and so on. And I think that was a missed opportunity to move on from all of them, from being bystander to an ally. So even though I felt that they do support me, they agree with me that it wasn't appropriate. However, they didn't make that next step to challenge it. And I think that's that unfortunately set the tone for the next few years of my career, which could have been a different story had someone actually challenged it, even after that happened, you know, reflected on it, and a few days later came back with, actually, I've raised it to someone. So I think, yeah, I think we can all move on from being bystander to an ally, without making a pledge or planning it. It can just happen, you know, at any time.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's something that that Joe picks up, actually, Joe Hardy picks up in the chat. And they say about, you know, sometimes things can be, you know, kind of quite low level, rather than really overt, and it can be kind of hard sometimes to maybe call out or exactly identify something that has kind of caused offence until, again, you know, from what you said, Arnie, it caused you offence at the time, but you know, often it is that reflection. But what I would say is, you know, absolutely, it doesn't matter when that realization of what may have been said or the behavior, when that kind of hits you, the impact of it, you know, it is always okay to kind of go back and retrospectively say, look, you might not remember, but this was the situation. Because again, you know, it is about that learning. And I think sometimes actually the impact of telling somebody how something's made you feel, which you don't always get at the time, I think is often very impactful when you're trying to help somebody learn and realize, you know, the impact that they've had on you. So I definitely would say that as hard as, like we said, it can be, don't you know, don't think that you can't go back retrospectively and potentially have that conversation with why something made you feel uncomfortable. But thank you, Ania. I hope your experiences are kind of are better now, and it's lovely to see you on the call today. So we're reaching the end of oh, Ash, sorry, come in, Ash.
No, sorry, I just had a thought, and I just wanted to see what people's views were. Something that really I dislike, and I think Ania's just made a really good point there. And it's lovely to see you. I worked on you in books, so it's lovely to see you on the call. I really don't like the microaggressions. Sometimes the really obvious stuff's really easy to pick up on. I don't like the fact that if a female member of staff says something, then you get male colleagues rolling their eyes, or if we're in a meeting and a female raises a point and yet it's ignored, and a male colleague raises a point and then it's acknowledged, and yes, what a good idea. You know, I really do hate the microaggressions. We really need to, yes, we've perhaps had some experience. I really dislike that, and I think we really need to be watching out for those microaggressions as well, because they can, even though they're so small, they can be so impactful. They really can, and the damage they can do can't be underestimated. So they need as much challenge as some of the really obvious things we see. And just to say on that as well, is the thing I really dislike is the need for everybody to label people and put them in a box as well. Can't we just embrace everybody as they are? I mean, the amount of times I've been called gay and other derogatory comments, which I don't think is, you know, for my sexuality. I don't, you know, I think it's shocking really that people think just because I don't fit into your stereotypical what a male should be doesn't mean you should then question my sexual orientation. But we're so desperate to label people up. I mean, I know, and another comment now about lived experience as well. So powerful lived experience, and some of the stories I hear are so shocking, really. I mean, we've come so far, Kath, as well. I mean, in my career, I've been pinned down by a naked crew commander before, you know, and I know females on the call here could share some very personal stories, I'm sure. But we need to get as far away from that as possible, and by being an ally and standing together, we can make those positive changes.
No, absolutely. Thank you ever so much. We're reaching the end of the session. Any other points or questions for that anybody would like to kind of bring into the conversation today? Alex.
Well, you talked about what's the challenges and the negatives of being a role model. I guess
end on the positive.
Let's end on the positives, because you know, I suppose I've even this year I've had a number of women contact me saying, you know, I'm not sure whether I should do this or go for that promotion and what have you. And there's a young woman in one of the Welsh brigades, that's, you know, close enough, who, you know, didn't think about going for promotion. And we had a real good chat and we talked about, you know, all the positives of, you know, all our experience. And I got an email from her the other day saying, this is because of you. Now, it's not because of me, it's because of her. But I gave her that little bit of self-confidence to do something that she was already capable of. And if that's being a role model, that fills me with a very warm, fuzzy feeling. And, you know, really pleased to see that that young woman has gone and passed her incident command assessment. So the positives are, one, it makes you feel nice and warm and fuzzy, and, you know, seeing women achieve whatever that may be, whether that be going for promotion or, you know, just finishing the development folder, whatever it is, you know, it's a really nice thing to do, and makes, you know, all the rubbish that some of us have gone through worthwhile, and some are still going through. I'm not saying it's perfect. So it's a really good thing, and I'm sure Ash feels the same about being that ally, because I know how important Ash's support has been to us as WFS, you know, and his I'm going to say bravery sometimes of standing up and you know, not being that bystander. It's made a huge difference to me. And so, yeah, I'll let Ash finish off with some wise words.
Ash.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Alex. Do you know what the biggest compliment for me is? That people really see my values and what's important to me, and absolutely empowering everybody is so important to me. And I think the only thing I ever find hard hitting is when people question intentions, and that's disappointing, as I mentioned previously. I think I've never felt so welcome or so empowered or so accepted as when I attended the Women's Fire Service development weekend, and I really came away from that, you know, kind of really empowered the allyship I was already doing, but kind of almost to take it to the next level. I think that inspiration that Alex mentioned about as well, you know, being able to inspire others, and I think that's so important. And that can be in so many different ways. You know, I remember a watch manager who was on one of my training courses said he was dyslexic, and I thought, well, you can't be because you're a watch manager. But of course, now I understand that you can be. So be that role model, be that person, be that ally, be that voice, and empower others. And yeah, just if anyone wants any further information, please feel free to get in contact with me. But thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much to everybody, and thank you absolutely to Ashley and Alex, and I think really well said. And what I finish off by saying is that good allyship, good role modeling, you know, at the end of the day, if we can inspire inclusion across the whole of our sector, then everybody genuinely will benefit. You know, this is not about women, this is not about you know, kind of your specific diverse groups. This is about absolutely everybody, and if we get inclusion right for one person, we will absolutely get it right for everybody. So take-ups from today, please go away, reflect on this session, but continue to be your wonderful selves, because that is indeed the best role model you can be, and help others learn, I think, through your lived experience and through the support of allyship, and see if we can get to that inclusive place that we want to get to in the future. Just a note, the last listen and learn for the year, that's kind of the financial year, not the actual year, is happening on the 28th of March, and that is to celebrate and to appreciate Trans Day of Visibility. That's actually on the 31st of March, but due to the Easter celebrations, public holidays, the listen and learn will take place on the 28th of March. Thank you very much indeed to all who have joined, and take care. And yeah, I would say take time to also look after yourselves. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.